This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning, a big Saturday of racing across the country. Before we talk about across the U.S., let me mention our friends at Woodbine. Thank them for their sponsorship. Woodbine, pick, bet, and cheer on great racing north of the border. But as I say, down here in the lower 48, as it were, a big day that will have Breeders' Cup implications. A little bit later on, we'll talk to John White from Santa Anita. They have a nice card of stakes out there. Joe Christofek from Churchill Downs will also join us. A nice evening card of stakes as well. And we'll hit on some of those stakes with our first guest, in fact, and go to New York also because they have a big day at Belmont today. First guest being Ellis Starr, the national racing analyst for Equibase. Ellis, good morning.
Good morning, racing fan. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, happy to have you on. And as I say, I think it is a big day across the country. Before we talk about this weekend, let me go back to last weekend, see if you had any thoughts on the action at Parx last weekend. I said it yesterday. As I was talking with a guest yesterday, I said, my first thought was to say controversial DQ in the cotillion. I'm not sure it was controversial so much as just disappointing that a grade one was decided that way at the end of what was a nice race between Midnight Bijou and Monomoy Girl, and then the nice comeback from McKinsey. Any thoughts on last weekend at Parx?
Well, on the DQ itself, I try and stay out of those. I leave them to stewards. If I have a dog in the fight, it angers me no end, certainly. The previous one, the Elite, last year, and it happens. It didn't really matter. I was more excited by Axelrod running as well as he did under McKinsey, who came back, which is exciting, even though I try and beat favorites. But one of the blogs I did have that, and that was good. And certainly the one that was really interesting was 3 before that, the Pennsylvania Derby Championship, which isn't really a handicap division race, sort of, but just a big effort by Aztec Sense, and I'd love to see him come and maybe, in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, but he's probably not good enough. As far as the DQ, all we want is consistency, right?
Yeah.
And, that kind of behavior obviously sometimes goes on, not as egregious as that, but is race riding, is it not, those kind of things. Certainly the 2 horses are, the top of the game, and can't wait till they face older now, hopefully in the distaff.
All right, let's jump in today. As I say, nice Breeders' Cup implications at the various venues across the country. And with you, we'll hit on each of those. And let's start things off in New York, because going to Equibase today, if folks want to look at your Race of the Week analysis, it will be the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Free pass performances available there as well for that race. I have those linked over on Equidaily also. But let's jump in and talk a little Jockey Club Gold Cup. And Ellis, while we talk, going to take a look at the stretch run to the Whitney back on August 4th. It will be number 6, Diversify, holding off Mind Your Biscuits. Keep in mind this Mind Your Biscuits performance as well, because he'll be mentioned a little bit later on in the Lucas down at Churchill. But we should mention, you're watching the performance here on the track, but this was a fluky performance in that there was a long weather delay before this with the horses all saddled up in the paddock. And so to come back and put a front-end performance like this in, Diversify, a solid effort there with a 110 buyer number. As I say, Mind Your Biscuits running second, and I thought it was a pretty good second given the scenario on the afternoon. Discreet Lover running third. Discreet Lover, again, like Diversify, in the Jockey Club Gold Cup this afternoon. I put Diversify on top in here off the last couple and the fact that he won this race last year. But I think it's interesting because whenever you have a front runner, will they get challenged early? Will they be able to clear? So there's always some question marks with that kind of a running style. But what are your thoughts on the Jockey Club Gold Cup?
Well, with any front runner, you're right. The strategy for anybody that has the ability to win but might be compromised by a lone F meaning your front runner, is, you're darned if you do and darned if you don't. If you take them on early, the chances are very high you compromise your own horse's chance. If you let them go, you're really in trouble. And last year, as a matter of fact, this is our race of the week, every week at Equibase, and also ABR, America's Best Racing. And I picked him last year on top, and 7-2 last year was a complete bargain because that was they just didn't see him coming out of the shipment. A New York bred race. This year, everybody sees him coming, and except for the Suburban, which is weird. He's been 6-5, 8-5, 2-1, 7-5. So it's interesting. And I looked at it a lot. Really tried to imagine the pace scenario because it's really important here. If Mendelssohn, for example, decides to give him company, how does that affect the race? Diversify, even though it was a one-turn mile, and the commentator rated third and came on, and he has that ability. Did it last year in the commentator as well, and missed by a nose to Weekend Holiday. So that's a question about that. And then think about overall what's going on. And remember also that Thunder Snow won the Dubai World Cup wire to wire. That was more of a matter of tactics, I thought, because Sumion knew the track was a little speed favoring, or you could say a lot, some people say, because Mendelssohn had won by 18 going wire to wire earlier on the card. So that tactic as well, we know he can rate. Most of the horses here don't have a whole lot of shot, and I think, but a lot of them could come in third. I'm going to end up taking a stand against Gronkowski, who just ran one pace in the Belmont and then totally flattened Travers. And I'm going to take a stand against Mendelssohn because you mentioned the buyer figure. The Equibase figure for Diversified, 118 and 114, the Suburban, rock solid. Mendelssohn, even though he's improving as a 3-year-old, his 101 and 104 last two won't get there. He's not going to go 14 points up on the Equibase scale. So the horse that I don't think it'll hold up, but 6-1, Thunder Snow is just my top pick. Just all the dirt races this year when he started his campaign as an older horse, first, second in the Mokhtoum Challenge Cup races, mostly tracking and mid-pack and closing, and then the World Cup wire-to-wire, which was tactics, totally tossing out the Juddmonte. It was on turf. Of course, he did win a Group 1 as a 3-year-old last July, but he's still fine on the dirt. We all know that. The Derby was a complete toss-out last year when he saw the puddles and just hopped in the air, and then Sumion just pulled him up. I think he's as good. His Equibase figures, when we do make them for Equibase and our Stats Racelands product, 4-4 in races. He got a 116 in the round 3. And then, I'll be honest, he got a number that I'd never seen in my life before. They converted the Divine number to a 142. That would be the all-time best in horse racing history of Equibase speed figure. I think 131 probably was Cigar. It's a little, anytime a horse goes wire to wire, those numbers are a little inflated. So I'm giving it, I'd say 122. But a 122 is still good enough to win the race. So I'm very, very high on Thunder Snow here. I'll take anything above 5-2 or higher. Him and Diversify, 1-2 for trifectas. No point really in the exacta. And I'm going to throw out the low odds horses. That's my key play here, by the way, is try. It's going to be 6-8, 6-8. And I'm going to use Patch in third. I'm going to use Uno Mas Modelo, who I think can really run well at a huge price here, at least third or fourth. I'm going to use Carlino, and I'm going to use Discreet Lover. So I'm going to try and really nail this with a try and a win bet on Thunder Snow.
All right, let's move on to a race a little bit earlier on the card. 2-year-olds on the turf in the Pilgrim. I think this is a nice competitive field in here, a nice full field in here, grade 3 event. I put Opry on top, and we're going to take a look at the With Anticipation from August 20th at Saratoga. Opry is going to be the number 8 horse in here. Some like it hot brown, the number 7, also in the Pilgrim this afternoon. Joyful Heart, the number 2, runs third. But Opry, in career debut, runs a good-looking third for Todd Pletcher, and then comes back as a maiden and puts in this performance. I liked it. A couple of nice improving performances, but of course, these are all lightly raced. There's probably all have some interesting upside potential, at least, still to go. What did you think in the Pilgrim?
Well, I love babies.
Me too.
Of all kinds. I mean, I don't know if you happen to see it. Cairo King was the key bet on one of my blogs 2 weeks ago at Churchill, and I just love it. And this is so interesting.
The Ken McPeak upsetter?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Good call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, because it just looked like a pattern. And, you know, when you can predict the whole game and the whole thing of racing for anybody is to predict what's going to happen today, not, you know, what happened last time. And when you look at what Opry did, and I like him, he's one of my 3 picks. He went from an off-turf 7-furlong dirt race to win the With Anticipation. I absolutely think, I'm going to say it, not say love, I really think Vineyard Sound can do the same thing today. It's the exact same pattern. An off-turf 7-furlong race at Saratoga was a week after Opry's. He set the pace. He got a little tired, ended up second, 6 clear of the third horse. His Equibase figure for that race was 81, compared to Opry's for his debut was 75. And then Opry jumped up 17 points to win the With Anticipation. Now, Vineyard Sound is bred as well or better than Opry is for the grass, because Stormy Atlantic has a number, and it's one of the great things about our Stats Race Funds program, is you can look at sire's stats and really look at, I looked at stakes winners, 2-year-old turf routes, and it was 3 for 10. And then the dam, actually, I don't know if you know that the dams had 3 of 4 of the dams foals have won turf routes in their career. However, one of them is a horse named Biddle Road, who I'm sure you remember. I think it was the 2013 With Anticipation. It might have been. And he's a full. So this Vineyard Sound is a full to Biddle Road, who's already did the same thing, didn't win the Pilgrim, won the race Opry ran. And he's 12-1 morning line, gets Prado. I just love the value on Vineyard Sound. I'm going to use 40 Under, who ran huge in his turf debut and is going the right way for a seriously hot trainer in Englehart, and Opry. So those are my picks. 4, 2, 5. I'm going to box them up once, and I'm going to play them also 4, 2, 5 over the horses you mentioned. One of them, Some Like It Hot Brown, who ran second to Opry. Social Paranoia, who ran second to 40 Under, and Spirit Animal for Chad Brown, because I'm not leaving Chad Brown out. So it's 2, 4, 5 over 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, but the win bet is on Vineyard Sound, hoping to do what Opry did last time out.
Interesting. All right, let's move on to Churchill. The evening card, this will go off at a little after 10 o'clock tonight, the Lucas Classic Grade 3 event. And again, we watched the Whitney earlier and saw Mind Your Biscuits run second. You know, this horse, probably people think of this horse, Mind Your Biscuits, as more a one-turn horse, but they're thinking maybe Breeders' Cup Classic this year with an older division that maybe is lacking some real superstars, although I think there's some good horses out in California that we'll see this afternoon. But Mind Your Biscuits, I'm not arguing at all off that second to try again and see what they can do down there at Churchill at 2 turns. So he's pretty logical if you're a buyer guy, and I am. But I'm taking a little shot in this race with Honorable Duty, because this horse won the race last year, did it with a nice triple digit. I think is coming in a similar fashion this year. Comes out of the Stephen Foster, so hasn't been seen since June, but that was the game plan last year. We're looking at last year's Lucas Classic. Honorable Duty is the number 7 horse and gets it done. Likes the track, 7 exacta finishes in 9 starts over the track. And again, I guess I'm just not totally convinced yet. Mind Your Biscuits at 2 turns, but I have that one right underneath, and I'm not arguing that is maybe the most likely winner. But I'm going to take a little shot with Honorable Duty. What did you see in the Lucas?
Well, I tweeted out earlier this week, for those, I'm sure you'll mention it, but my Twitter, at UberCapper, I tweeted out that Chad Summers and his team has done a fantastic job with Mind Your Biscuits. So please don't take my analysis to me. I don't like him. I just don't think he can win. And I'm not going to bet him win even Monday morning line. I'm going to use him underneath. That's about it. When you look at that race, even though Diversify wired, the fact is he ran even in the stretch, and I don't like that. Horses that sprint and stretch out either come from further back and can get up or don't get up, they just miss, or they do what he did, which is run even. I think he's totally suspect to a front runner here or a pace pressure. He has to come back. Gaffalione's not familiar with him, even though I imagine he's ridden him in the morning, maybe not. I agree with you that Honorable Duty is the horse to beat. 5-2 morning line, I would take it all day long. He's on the identical pattern as you said. He went off form in the Fayette and Clark last year, but he came back to win his prep. And then the Foster, just a great race behind Pablo, who freaked that day. He shows up every time. Lannery rides him. He's got the rail. He can either sit off Flowers for Lisa early, or he can go to the lead if Flowers for Lisa doesn't make the lead, which I think is improbable. And so he's very tough. That being said, Flowers for Lisa is very playable here. And George Navarro last week with when he shipped a little bit out Parks with Aztec Sense. He doesn't ship out much, but I still take him very seriously out of his home base since he moved. He really was in Navarro's care since the claim back in July of 17, and it's just been tremendous. He can also run, believe it or not, even though he did wire the last two races, he can also run off the pace. 3 back, came from off the pace and ran huge, and he's on a nice pattern, 100, 105, 110 echo base figures. Compare that to Honorable Duty's 100, 112. So they're right in the same ballpark, and you're going to get a better price on Honorable Duty. And the classified allowance he ran at Saratoga when he came in second, You're to Blame came back, the winner, came back to win the Greenwood Cup, and Flowers for Lisa beat the third horse by 4 lengths, who came back to run second, and the fourth horse won. So this is almost a key race. Actually, it is a key race. The winner and the fourth horse came back to win out of it. The third horse came back to run well, and the only horse of the top 4 that hasn't come back is Flowers for Lisa. And then I'm going to throw in Remembering Rita as well, since blinkers were added. Tremendous improvement. This is weird. The horse goes 0 for 9, or 0 for 8 to start his career, and then all of a sudden blinkers, and he wins 11 lengths, wins the Cornhusker in his third, second race after breaking his maiden at 18-1. Comes back and runs fourth in the Monmouth Cup. I can toss out one bad race. He's got a shot. So I'm making it 1-5-2. Honorable Duty, Flowers for Lisa, Remembering Rita as my win contenders, and my exact is going to be 1-2-5 over 1-2-5-6, because I am putting Mind Your Biscuits in second.
All right. I didn't know what to do with Flowers for Lisa, but I wouldn't argue with anybody taking that shot at the price. All right, Ellis, just a couple of minutes left, but let's shift out to the West Coast. And again, if you check out the Santa Anita website, Ellis has picks available there as well, the Santa Anita website, which you can find, Google that or just check it out on a daily basis on the Santa Anita racing season. But Santa Anita's 9th race today on a stakes-laden card, the Grade 1 Chandelier for 2-year-old fillies. Field of 6 in here, a half a dozen, but, as always in these 2-year-old stakes, they're all coming in with some recommendation underneath in the PPs. I pulled up the maiden special weight race from August 5th at Del Mar. Derlou for Bob Baffert. Boy, this was a pretty good looking debut effort. Now, granted, 3-5 that day, but I'm sure a lot of that was as much Bob Baffert as any of the talent or breeding the horse had. But lives up to it, wins by a chart margin of 3.5. However, Bellafina comes in with a couple of stakes races, including the Grade 1 Del Mar debutante previously. So going to be interesting to see what Derlou can do coming out of this maiden breaker with Bellafina in the race. What are your thoughts on the Chandelier?
Well, I love Bellafina in the Sorrento at 3-1 with the blinkers coming off the maiden, which I thought she's going to improve upon. But what's really weird about this race, first of all, thanks for the Santa Anita plug. You can, if you follow me on Twitter or go to Santa Anita and the handicapping, you'll see it. I was lucky yesterday. I always say lucky because I pick one race out of the whole card to make the free race, and it happened to be Streak of Luck in the 4th race, paid $17. So got good start. I'm hoping that's the same. It's a different race. Chandelier is not the free race today. I'm talking about.
And I will verify that's tough when you only get the one race, because during the summer I handicap some evenings on the local CBS affiliate. They had me sit in at the end of the card, and I look at 3 races for the next day. But it's only 3 races. And some days it's like, oh man, I won the other 6 races, but the 3 I picked, I whiffed on.
Right.
It's kind of quirky when you have to only make that one pick. So good job.
It's harder than handicapping the race themselves to pick the race you want to play. I've got a strategy for it finally, which worked out well for that. Pick some Woodbine as well this week. Just lucky this week. I like the horse to come in first or second, and he ended up going off at 13-1 and got beat by a 28-1 shot. So it was huge exacta on my Wednesday Woodbine pick. So that was nice. But back to the Chandelier. The problem is this, and against patterns, both on Beyer and Echo Base scales, the Del Mar Debutante was horrible. You can see the Beyer 94.75, the Echo Base 101-84 for Bellafina. Mother has a big win, went 102.76, and Del Mar, those two, and Abril 88-68. And on that token, I can't touch the favorite, and I'm with you. You know, the Baffert 4-1. It's not going to happen. It'll be 2-1, but I'll take it. I made Derelou 9-5 fair odds, and Del Mar May would be the other horse, because Del Mar May actually ran second to Bellafina and then sat out, did not run the Debutante, which might have been the best thing, because there was just something quirky about that race. Even though it was fast on paper, the track was really, really fast that day, and so the figures got really, really demoted. Del Mar May went 85-92. Derelou went 99. So Derelou's last race effort, both Beyer and Echo Base, was the best last race effort in the field by far, except for Del Mar May, which was 92-84. And I think Derelou is just, Baffert, this filly did very well. Van Dyke rode her. She ran very maturely from off the pace. She put in a 47-8, second best of 63 coming in. So I made Derelou the top pick. Del Mar May, I might make two bets here. Del Mar May, I bet it about 5-2 or better. Derelou at 9-5, and just trying to, crush it. The good thing is, we're not talking about the Awesome again. The race 10, the big one, really boils down to the two logical horses, West Coast and Accelerate. And so you can play pick threes here. I'm probably going to play the 2 and the 5 in this race with 3 or 4 horses in the Rodeo Drive, and then just the 2 horses in the last, and play a few times to make some money on this race.
Very good. Ellis, as always, appreciate the visit and the conversation, and throughout, you mentioned it, but throughout the graphic with your photo, we've been showing your Twitter handle as well, so if people want to check out at Uber Capper, they can do that also. Again, Ellis, appreciate the visit. We'll talk again.
Yep, thanks very much. And real quick, I'll be doing free picks for Keeneland every day as well, starting next Friday.
Oh, nice. And certainly we'll check in on that also over the next few weeks. So appreciate the visit.
All right, everybody, take care. Have a great day today.
Ellis Starr, National Racing Analyst for Equibase. We'll take a break. When we come back, Joe Christofek, our buddy from Churchill Downs. Big evening for them this evening with the Lucas Classic. A couple other nice stakes. We'll hit on those right after this. Stay tuned.
Pick, bet, and cheer on live racing from Woodbine and Mohawk Park. Thoroughbred and harness action. The wagers are just the beginning. Watch award-winning broadcasts covering both breeds, incredible battles contested over the most unique grass course in North America. Experience the full fields with over 130 thoroughbred and 160 live harness days. Get access to free handicapping material and join the ranks of Woodbine and Mohawk Park players from all over the globe. For more information, visit woodbine.com.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
Looking for a fantastic meal? Stop by Malcolm's, a unique farm-to-table restaurant experience. Located at 617 Union Street in Schenectady, Malcolm's offers locally grown fresh foods, mouth-watering flavors, an enhanced drink menu, and terrific service. Malcolm's is a sure bet during Saratoga season. Make your reservation today.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. As promised before the break, joined now by our friend Joe Christofek from Churchill. You see him in the pregame show down in the paddock. Joe, good morning.
Good morning. It's an exciting day. I'm glad I get to kind of ease my way into it before heading over the track and gearing up for what should be a fantastic night.
Yeah, it should be a great night of racing. And before we get any further into it, why don't you give us a little update? What's the weather look like tonight?
Man, it's going to be beautiful.
Oh, that's what we like.
We felt that fall chill in the air a little bit yesterday. We had quite a bit of rain the last week or so, but, man, it's cleared out. It's sunny. I will be back on the turf, I'm guessing, today. We've been off this week so far. But, yeah, main track will be fast and good to go.
First race post is 6 p.m. this evening. The Lucas Classic goes off about 10:11. That's the scheduled post time. Before we get into some of that racing, I just want to go back. We were up at Woodbine a couple of weeks ago covering the Woodbine Mile, and in the press box, I was sitting next to your colleague Ed DeRozan. At one point, he put the Churchill feed on the TV. You had the bow tie on. Looked very sporting.
Yeah, the Sundays at Churchill Downs are designated bow tie Sundays by some of the people in management. We take a commemorative picture. I do not know how to tie one, so I'll keep a secret as to how I get it done. But, yeah, it's
not one of those pre-tied things, is it, that you just got to latch on your collar?
Yeah, we'll keep that between me and you.
Well, listen, I can't say anything, because if I was doing a bow tie, I would be right in exactly the same boat. Also, before we go ahead.
We'll just say it's not. We'll just end with this, Seth. It's not a clip-on. We'll just end there.
Okay. All right, a little help then tying me, but as I say, I would be in exactly the same boat. Before we get into the racing today, one more thing I wanted to touch on, because as we corresponded about your spot today, you alerted me. We've talked about it before. You put together a little group, a little ownership group, and you have a horse going tomorrow.
Yeah, man, what a journey. I mean, from buying the horses at the sale, this one came out of the Timonium sale right after Preakness. Is a Escandrea colt named Eskin for it, and Steve Margolis is the trainer. And getting him from the sale to the layup, giving him some time to rest his mind and his body, and gear back up to go to the racetrack, which is a completely new experience for all those young horses. Getting that first workout under his belt, getting the first gate breeze and company. Just all the steps that it takes to get a horse to the races. We know they're fragile animals, mentally and physically sometimes, especially when they're younger on the mental side of it. So it's an achievement just to get in the race. We're in the 8th race tomorrow, Sunday. Eskin for it for Steve Margolis and Joe Rocco. And it's a starting point for him. We think he's a pretty good finisher. We're hoping to make a run at the end and see where it puts us.
Very good. That's got to be really exciting. Eskin for it in the 8th tomorrow. We'll be watching for it and rooting for it. All right, let's jump in today. Again, nice card, evening card at Churchill Downs, and let's kind of work our way back from the highlight, the Lucas Classic. Already today we've looked at the Whitney and saw Mind Your Biscuits run 3rd. A little bit earlier I also played last year's Lucas Classic with Honorable Duty winning. I have those two won too. Honorable Duty on top for maybe a little bit of an upset, because I'm not totally convinced yet 2 turns for Mind Your Biscuits. But as I talked, I wanted to pull up one more replay to take a look at. Our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds have Breaking Lucky in here. And I'm going to go to Saratoga, August 19th. Breaking Lucky is going to run 3rd in here. Number 6, Petrov, wins. Favorable Outcome, the 1 second, and Breaking Lucky runs 3rd. But it is notable, this was a layoff from September of last year until, again, this August 19th race. So the number 7, Breaking Lucky, maybe a good setup for tonight down at Churchill Downs. I think I'll play around with that one at least a little bit on the underneath side on the 6-1 morning line. But what are your thoughts on the Lucas Classic tonight?
Yeah, we'll just start with Breaking Lucky. Obviously, he ran great here in the Clark in 2016. I know that was a long time ago, but he was second to a little horse by the name of Gunrunner, so that's a little bit of an achievement. You've talked about the main contenders. I mean, Mind Your Biscuit. Chad Summers could go in the sprint. He could go in the dirt mile. He could go in the Classic, and I think this is going to be the determining factor for him. I think he's the best horse in the race, but again, 9 furlongs against the likes of some pretty good ones, including Honorable Duty, who seems to be back in top form after a little bit of a slump for Brendan Walsh. We know he likes the racetrack. The horse I think is sneaky in here is Term of Art. I thought he ran a better than it looks race in the Woodward. I know he was 6 beaten, a little bit more than 4 lengths, but speed was holding really well on the main track, obviously, that day. He finished willingly behind Yoshida, and I just think he's improved for Brad Cox. So that would be my sneaky horse, but I do think, obviously, Mind Your Biscuits is the one to beat. And as a fan, I'd like to see him run great because it adds more intrigue to the Breeders' Cup, which, of course, is at Churchill.
Yeah, and that's, again, part of the game plan, obviously, for the Summers team, bringing Mind Your Biscuits down, try the 2 turns over the track. So it's going to be fun to see what he does tonight in the Lucas Classic. A couple other stakes on the card, though, that we'll also take a look at. The ACAC, one race earlier, Grade 3 event at a mile. I'm going to pull up the replay from June 30th, the Kelly's Landing. CZ Rocket is going to win this by a chart margin of 4. Subsequently came up to Saratoga and ran 4th in the Forego behind Whitmore City, a light and limousine Liberal. But again, this was the last time this horse was seen at Churchill Downs as we watched the stretch run to the Kelly's Landing. Couple of wins and 3 starts at Churchill, so I think the return to Louisville is going to benefit CZ Rocket. I thought Seeking the Soul was interesting on the cutback for Dallas Stewart, and certainly there'll be a lot of rooting interest down there for Warriors Club, the Churchill Downs Racing Club owned horse, who has done very well for that kind of public fund ownership group. Awesome Slew's interesting to me as well for Mark Casse. But given the race we just saw back in June, the Kelly's Landing, the win by CZ Rocket, to me, it kind of goes through him. What did you see in the ACAC?
Yeah, Kelly's Landing, the CZ Rocket win there was a very, very fast race. He looked great. He ran in the Forego, which I think from top to bottom was one of the better sprint races over 7 furlongs we've seen this year. I mean, Whitmore ran great. City of Light was the beaten favorite. Limousine Liberals in great form, and CZ Rocket was 4th. Got a perfect pressing trip that day, just didn't punch on, but I think it was the competition he was facing, not the fact that he was stopping. There's not a lot of speed at all in the ACAC, and I think CZ Rocket from a cozy outside post and a really good forward rider in Sean Bridgmahan, he's got the tactical advantage. I think he's supposed to win this race if he runs his A race. Seeking the Soul is very intriguing. I'm not going to hold the Woodward against him. He was up there stalking the pace and just kind of dropped back over a racetrack that a lot of horses didn't run well over. The cutback is interesting to me. He obviously won the Clark going 9 furlongs at Churchill last year. He could have run in the Lucas Classic, but I think Dallas Stewart is being realistic and thinking to himself, you know what, we're probably not good enough to go in the Breeders' Cup Classic over 1.25 miles. Let's cut him back in the ACAC to 1 mile, and then we can probably run it in the dirt mile. I think he's worthy of that. I don't know what to do with Giant Expectations off the bench. Complete wild card to me. Awesome Slew won this race last year, but I think he's lost a half a step. For multi-race wager purposes, Seth, I'm going to be all over CZ Rocket with maybe a little bit of Seeking the Soul included.
Sounds good. And let's move on to the Jefferson Cup. 3-year-olds on the turf. I say it about 1,000 times all year long. I love this subdivision of 3-year-olds on the turf. I think it's competitive every year and makes for nice stakes races really up and down the East Coast and really out in the West Coast too when you fold that in. The Jefferson Cup this evening, going to take a look at the replay going back to Del Mar on July 19th, an allowance optional claimer. Number 2, Majestic Eagle, will be the winner. I'm going to put that one on top. I just kind of like the Southern California form over the past 3 or 4 starts. Del Mar Derby was the stakes debut and ran 4th in that one. That was subsequent to this race we're looking at here. But I think got some experience, some stakes experience in that one. I put Hot Springs underneath for Steve Asmussen, and then Captivating Move. I think, though, this is a really competitive edition of the Jefferson Cup. What were your thoughts?
Do you have the morning line in front of you? Because I absolutely love a horse in here. I don't have the morning line, and I don't know what the odds are on number 3, Tigers Rule.
6-1.
Okay. That's fair. I think 6-1 would be very bettable. I absolutely love this horse tonight. This horse ran at Kentucky Downs last time, September 6th, off the bench. He got a lot of early money. And I was like, man, what's up with this? This is an optional claiming 2 other than. But it was more like a stakes race. I mean, a lot of really good older horses, grade 3 types in there, including the winner, Galton, who was extremely impressive. It was a slow-paced race. Galton got a perfect pressing trip. But Tigers Rule really ran on well. If you get a chance, if you haven't seen that race, Seth, go back and watch it. Like I said, it was a minor stakes race disguised as an optional claimer. And if he runs back to that race or even takes a step forward, second off the layoff, I look around at this field, man, and I'm very familiar with the vast majority of the horses in this race, outside of the Drysdale, who I think is okay. But Tigers Rule at 6-1, that would be, if you ask me for my play of the night, that would be him.
Let me ask you, because you mentioned Tiger's Rule, and you mentioned the fact the horse came from Kentucky Downs, and I've been handicapping on the afternoon handicapping show in here for the past week and a half or so since we've returned from Saratoga, and I've mentioned it a few times now, and I'll see if you agree. Over the past few years and continuing this year, I love the horses coming from that Kentucky Downs short meet. And not just if they're going turf to turf. Some horses go over there and they're more dirt horses, but the purse is so attractive, they go over and try that and then return to the dirt wherever they go. But I always, as I handicap over this next, the last week and a half or so, and then going forward another 2 or 3 weeks, I kind of circle these horses that come out of Kentucky Downs and give them a little bit of an extra check mark.
Agree. Of course, it's always a case-by-case basis. A lot of people strictly follow trends when they bet horse races. I am on the complete opposite side of that. I take every horse, every race, as an individual horse, an individual race, an individual situation. But you're definitely on to something. I love the Kentucky Downs meet. My handle goes through the roof during that 5-day meet. Proven to be pretty successful betting it. And then coming out of it, like you said, you take good trip notes. You know the profile, the way the Kentucky Downs turf course plays, sprint versus route versus yielding versus firm, and you can really take advantage of that meet, not only during the meet, but after the meet. And I think this may be one of those situations where you look at Tiger's Rule and you see an optional claiming 2 other than. If you don't know what you're looking at, you're like, well, that's a decent race. This horse has a shot. But Gelton was the winner, and that horse has earned, $600,000 or $700,000, $800,000. It was a deep race from top to bottom, and unless you were intimately involved with the meet or that race, you probably don't know that unless you go back and look at it. So, yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I think it's not going to work all the time. We both know that, Seth, because the game would be way too easy if it did. But it's definitely an angle worth considering for sure.
Yeah, I'm right with you, case-by-case basis. But as I say, there's an extra little check mark next to some of those horses. And to give people an idea, when I did the handicapping show yesterday, as you say, people look and maybe don't realize how salty these races are. But yesterday I was handicapping, and there was one of these situations, a horse coming out of a maiden race over at Kentucky Downs, a maiden race for $135,000.
Yeah, no, for sure. We had one win the other night at Churchill. I think that was dropping from a maiden special weight at Kentucky Downs, didn't run a step, and then ran on dirt at Churchill in a maiden claiming 30 or 50 or something, and won at a huge price. James Scully, my counterpart at Churchill, had the horse. I think it was 17-1 the other night. So, yeah, just pay attention, man. This game is all about taking advantage of opportunities, and I think you and I have uncovered something that not a lot of people really pay too much attention to.
And hopefully we've uncovered some ideas also for tonight at Churchill with, again, a really nice stakes card that will have some Breeders' Cup implications, no doubt. Kicks off at about 6 o'clock tonight. Joe, as always, appreciate the visit. We'll talk again.
Yeah, always a good time. Always appreciate the conversation. Best of luck to everybody out there. And a couple more days for me and then a little time off, enjoying some races as a fan at Keeneland, and then gearing up for the Breeders' Cup in my own backyard. So good times ahead.
Yeah, got to be excited, and also excited for tomorrow, and we'll be rooting for you. Eskin Fort, good luck.
Yeah, thanks, man. Have a good one.
You too. Joe Christofek from Churchill Downs. All right, we'll shift our attention to the West Coast. When we come back, John White from Santa Anita. More great stakes action that will have Breeders' Cup implications, and we'll talk about it right after this. Stay tuned.
The backstretch workers are the heart and soul of what we do.
They're the backbone of the industry.
People on the racetrack are very giving people.
It's a very oppressive community of people helping one another. We see it all the time.
Any help we need it. It's right there in their hands.
It makes so much easier in the family to have somebody like Nathan to help them.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned what you know, and make better decisions, better choices, to know how to connect the dots. In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool, but not the only tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. These too are important tools, and you'll find them all right here at Capital OTB. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Sign up today for Capital OTB's handicapping series and plan your trip to Las Vegas.
If you like to play the Late Pick 5, here's some great news. Capital OTB is now accepting internet wagering on NYRA's Late Pick 5 at Saratoga on all platforms and all digital devices. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com, look for the icon, and there you go. If you're playing on one of your digital devices, just open your Capital OTB Bet icon, click on the menu button, and scroll down to find the Late Pick 5. Late Pick 5 wagering, now at Capital OTB.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. As promised before the break, joined by our friend John White from Santa Anita. John, we haven't talked to you in a while, but the fall meet now underway. Got underway yesterday and a great stakes day today, so I thought who better to reach out to? John White, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Always great to be with you. And really today is one of the better racing cards of the entire year here in Southern California. We've got major Grade 1 races, but not only that, it's a big card. It's a 12-race card and a lot of big fields. So really looking forward to the thoroughbred racing action this afternoon at the Great Race Place.
Yeah, as am I, and as I'm sure all of our audience is as well, because, again, some Breeders' Cup implications coming out of this. Let's jump right in. The 6th race this afternoon, the Grade 1 American Pharoah for 2-year-olds going 1 mile and a 16th. Field of only 5 in here, but it's kind of interesting with, as I say, maybe some Breeders' Cup potential. Bob Baffert's Game Winner is the horse that I think folks will focus on coming out of the win in the Del Mar Futurity. We'll take a look at that. Number 7 Game Winner wins by a chart margin of 1.5 lengths. Rowayton, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, the number 2 runs second. Number 3 Roadster runs third as the 3-5 favorite in here. Couple of these come back, Game Winner and Rowayton, but Game Winner, again, 2 for 2 now. It's Bob Baffert coming out of a Grade 1 win that we're watching right here, the Del Mar Futurity. But what are your thoughts on the American Pharoah?
Well, first of all, it would be rather appropriate for Bob Baffert to win the race since he was the trainer of Triple Crown winner American Pharoah. As this race has been renamed this year, it was formerly the front runner, and before that it was the Norfolk. And that's when you start to feel like you're getting a little long in the tooth in this game. When you're watching races that you used to know as the Norfolk Stakes, then become the front runner, and now it's the American Pharoah. The Game Winner looms the one to beat. I mean, that was a big performance by him in the Del Mar Futurity. He earned a 93 Beyer speed figure in that race, which is one of the highest by a 2-year-old this year. The disappointment is the fact that Roadster, trained by Baffert, and Instagram, trained by Hollendorfer, aren't in this race. This would have been a race that could have been a showdown between 2 really talented 2-year-olds, but both of those have been shelved for the rest of the year, so that's disappointing. But Gunmetal Gray is interesting to me in this race because he's got a race under his belt around 2 turns. And Game Winner, this will be his 2-turn debut. And this Gunmetal Gray in his 2-turn debut in his second career start was really impressive, winning by almost 7 lengths at Del Mar. So this exchange rate, Colt, could be very tough today with Pratt aboard. And Rowayton went too fast too early last time out, but if they can ration that speed a little better, he could be tough this afternoon as well. But Game Winner deserves to be the favorite. He's undefeated and coming off that win in the Del Mar Futurity. and of course is in the hands of one of the great trainers of our time, Bob Baffert, a two-time Triple Crown winning trainer.
And I'll add Gunmetal Gray, who you mentioned, owned in part by our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds. They're kind of based up in our area. We like to root for their runners. And isn't Rowayton, if I'm not mistaken, that is the owner, same owner, right, of Instagram, who sent that one to the sideline? That was kind of a quirky owner decision in the 21st century.
Yes, that is the same owner, and yes, that was kind of a quirky decision, although sometimes there's more to those quirky decisions than meets the eye, too, I know from being in this game a long time. But nevertheless, Rowayton is a pretty nice colt in his own right. He was a very nice maiden winner in his career debut at Del Mar, and as I say, really he just went too fast too early. He kind of took off on the backstretch in that 7-furlong Del Mar Futurity. And as I say, if they can maybe ration that speed, get him to rate better today, he's still one that could be tough. Those are the three major players in the race. Now, there are some people that think Hefe is even maybe a live long shot, even though he's a maiden, because maybe, he finished second to Gunmetal Gray in that two-turn race, and he looks like he's a decent Curlin colt, and a lot of times those Curlins get better as they get older, just kind of mature. So Hefe could be one maybe next year even, looking on down the road.
And Sal Kuhlman, one of the with the Matacat, seems like he owns part of everything these days.
It sure does, doesn't it?
East Coast, West Coast.
We should ask who isn't he involved in anymore.
We Steve Vick and I on our Sunday show during the Saratoga meet up on the backstretch had him in the last weekend of the meet, and it was a really fun interview. All right, the ninth race this afternoon, the 2-year-old girls going 1 1/16, field of 6 in here. I'm going to show the Del Mar debutante from September 1st. Number 5, Bellafina, is going to be the winner. Number 4, Mother runs second. Number 2, Brill runs fourth. They're all back this afternoon. And Bellafina, out of the 2 stakes wins, including this Grade 1 Del Mar debutante, certainly going to take a lot of action. A little bit earlier, John, we took a look at the maiden breaker from Derloo for Bob Baffert, and I certainly think that one off of the maiden breaker is very tough. And frankly, if I'm jumping into this race, I may take the shot with Derloo. I don't know if the morning line will hold up, but definitely if we get 4-1, Derloo becomes more attractive for me. But as I say, with the stakes experience, Bellafina, very tough. What are your thoughts?
Well, you're taking a little knock on my morning line there, Seth. Wondering if it'll hold up. Kind of saying I may be off the grid there a little bit with that morning line. Well, and you could be right. She might get played, but I'll tell you what. That was a tough race to make the morning line.
I'm
what
sure.
do you do with Mother? What do you do with Del Mar May, who I think may get a little play in here too? And what do you do with Brill, who's been 3-5 in her 2 starts so far? And I've got her at 3-1, and I've heard some people tell me I've got her too high at 3-1, and I've heard people tell me I have her too low at 3-1. So, the reason why I don't think you'll be in the ballpark with your 4-1 is Bellafina may get bet down from the 9-5 if anything happens
I think so,
here.
Yeah.
And if that happens, the way the dynamic of wagering happens, when you slice up the wagering pie, that means there isn't going to be a ton of money left for Derloo to go much shorter than 4-1. And Bellafina, those 2 back-to-back, it isn't just that she won the Del Mar debutante, but she also won the Sorrento by over 4 lengths. So she's got back-to-back graded wins under her belt coming into this race, and that's going to stamp her as the one to beat. It's going to stamp her as the favorite. There's no question she will be the favorite. It's just how heavy. And I didn't go lower on her just out of making sure I gave respect to horses in this race, fillies like Mother and Derloo and Brill. And Brill's kind of a real question mark. She's $1 million auction purchase that I know they were raving about from that Hollendorfer barn before her first start, which is why she was 3-5 in her debut, and she won that race. And then she was disappointing in the Del Mar debutante. So it'll be interesting to see what Brill does today. Was she overrated, perhaps, or will she rebound off that disappointing effort and beat this bunch?
Yeah, and I'm not knocking the morning line, believe me, because it is a tough job that I would have no clue as to how to do properly, and particularly in races like this, and I'll ask your opinion. Are these 2-year-old stakes races one of the tougher ones to make morning lines for? And I say that just because we're looking at a race with Derlew, 1 start, a number of others in here, 2 starts, and they all look really good. And so you're just kind of, as a bettor, it's almost a crystal ball kind of thing. Who is going to maybe move forward? Who is going to kind of stay stable in the numbers they've fired so far? So to me, these are the toughest races that you make a morning line for anyway.
Well, they're among the toughest, that is for sure. So at least, though, like I say, what is kind of nice is that I don't think there's any question who will be the favorite.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I take the most pride in. I've been making the morning line in Santa Anita. I'll be heading into my 10th year next year, and one of the things, ever since I started making the morning line at Santa Anita, I've had the right favorite at least 70% of the time at every meet that I've been at, and I feel that that's important because that's kind of the starting point for a lot of bettors and handicappers these days. They want to know where maybe they can get value beating the favorite, and if I'm right 7 out of 10 times, at least 7, to have the right favorite, it gives people a chance to look at the races ahead of time and try to determine who they want to bet against.
All right, let's move on to the Rodeo Drive, Grade 1 event for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, going 1.25 miles on the grass. Nice field of 8 in here, and I think a nice competitive field of 8 in here. But, yeah, you nailed the morning line in this one with Basilica, who clearly is going to be the favorite. We're going to pull up the John C. Maybe from Del Mar on September 1st. Basilica, the number 9 horse, wins this. Chart margin of a length and a half as the 4-1 second choice. 4-5 favorite Cambodia runs second, and Cambodia a slight tick up on your morning line. So again, these horses come out of this race having run 1-2. But to me, Basilica, just on that win streak, is the one I'm tilting towards. Not just the win streak, but the stretch one we just saw has a pretty clear edge on Cambodia in there. So I think Basilica is the one to beat. But what are your thoughts on the Rodeo Drive?
Well, I'm not 100% sure she'll be the favorite, which is why I have them 8-5, 9-5. That's one of the hints that you can get looking at a morning line is the gap between the first and second choices. And so if there is no real gap, that tells you that, to me, favoritism could go either way. And the reason I think it could go either way is, don't forget, Cambodia was 4-5 in that maybe, and you mentioned Basilica was 4-1. That's a big spread. So it's going to take a lot for Basilica to overtake Cambodia in favoritism. I hemmed and hawed on that, but I think you're right, Seth. I think Basilica will go favored here because when you look and you see this sterling winning streak that she's on, and remember, one of those races she won a starter handicap under 129 pounds. We don't see horses, especially fillies and mares, carrying that kind of weight these days of winning with 129 pounds. So that was kind of a tip-off as to her quality. But what a claim she's been. She was a $40,000 claim in February and didn't even win first off the claim for Hall of Fame trainer Jerry Hollendorfer. But after she finished second in a photo in her first start for the Hollendorfer barn, she's reeled off those 6 consecutive victories. And it's a pretty neat story. But Cambodia did not have the best of goes. She didn't break well in the maybe, and she had kind of a rough trip and was closing strongly. So to me, both of those are very strong candidates to win this race. I'll give the slight nod to Basilica.
Yeah, as I say, Basilica is attractive to me. I'm a buyer guy, and I guess consistently Cambodia is probably firing better numbers, better buyers. But Basilica, to me, last time went off as the 4-1. As that was kind of a test, a quality test moving into the Grade 2 event, and I thought she passed with flying colors.
Yes, she did, no question about it. So, because that was a big step up in class for her. She'd never run in a graded stakes race in her career before, and she stepped in to face the likes of a Cambodia, and then beat Cambodia. And that wasn't a photo. She won, by a clear margin. But as I say, watch out for Cambodia because Cambodia, you look up and down her past performances, and there's nothing but Grade 1s, Grade 2s. I mean, in her last several starts. So she's more battle-tested in the higher class, races. But so it's an interesting rematch between those two today, I think.
Always like to root for Tommy Proctor, too, trainer of Cambodia.
Me too. I used to play basketball against him every Tuesday here at Santa Anita for many years.
Yeah, very good. We had him on up at Saratoga a few years ago. Tells a great story about when he was a kid going across country on a train with a couple of horses, and he'd forgotten or didn't think to, whatever, he didn't pack any food. And so at one point, like halfway through the trip, he gets off the train at a quick stop and runs over and gets a banana in a convenience store, and he said, that banana tasted like a steak dinner to him. Great story. All right, let's look at the highlight this afternoon. The awesome, again, Grade 1 event, mile and an eighth. I've said all year, I think the handicap division, the older division, is maybe a little bit lacking this year, but when you look at the two horses that are going to face off here, West Coast and Accelerate. Accelerate hasn't been seen since the Dubai World Cup. Good second behind Thunder Snow. Before that, a good second in the Pegasus behind Gun Runner. Now makes the comeback off of the March layoff in Dubai. But we're going to take a look at the PAC Classic, Pacific Classic, August 18th. Accelerate's going to be the number 5 horse in here. A buyer figure of 115. This was just a phenomenal performance. We have, a string of 6 triple-digit buyers coming into this race. As I say, to me, the older division maybe a little bit lacking this year, but you look at a performance like this and you look at the PPs of Accelerate, this may be the horse that comes out of the weekend and heads into the Breeders' Cup with some real buzz. Your thoughts on the Awesome Again?
Well, Accelerate is a grandson of Awesome Again, so it certainly would be appropriate for him to win the Awesome Again Stakes, and he will be the heavy favorite. I made him a very short price in this race, 3-5, and what's interesting about him to me is coming into this year, there was a perception by many that maybe he wasn't all that good going farther than maybe even a mile. People kind of questioned him at a mile and an eighth, and especially at a mile and a quarter. They thought, that's just not really his game. Well, it is his game. He's won 3 Grade 1 races at a mile and a quarter this year, the Santa Anita Handicap, the Gold Cup at Santa Anita, and then that scintillating performance in the Pacific Classic. West Coast, now Bob Baffert, I think, had maybe given consideration to training him right up to the Breeders' Cup Classic, but what forced his hand is he has said that this is a colt that doesn't really work in the same manner as an American Pharoah or an Arrogate, who he both brought up to the Breeders' Cup Classic off works from the Travers Stakes, but those were 2 brilliant morning workout type colts. Whereas West Coast really isn't in that same league, so he needs the race. Never sell Bob Baffert short because when he brings them over, they're typically ready. But obviously off the layoff, he's going to face somewhat of a tall order here this afternoon against Accelerate. So it's Accelerate's race to lose, no question about it.
John, before we let you go, as a Southern California guy, let me go back to last week. And again, Bob Baffert in Pennsylvania. Your thoughts on McKinsey on the return in the Pennsylvania Derby, which was very good. But then also fold in, the dud by Collected. That was really a head-scratcher.
Well, that was a dud, and especially, like I say, when Bob Baffert runs them, even off a layoff, usually they don't run like that. But it just shows you that not even all of Baffert's horses are going to go out there and win. But I was certainly tickled by McKenzie's performance, particularly since I'm a big McKenzie fan. And when I was in Las Vegas on August 1st, I got him at 30-1 in the future book for the Breeders' Cup Classic. So win, lose, or draw, I'm hoping he just gets in the gate, because Bob Baffert has said he'll look at either the Breeders' Cup Classic, or if he really feels he's not up to that, in his second start off the layoff, he'll wait for the Clark Handicap at Churchill in later November. But I certainly feel like I've got a good price on a very nice colt, and McKenzie at 30-1 for that Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yeah, no question about it. Good job there. And John, when we talked to you in the springtime, last time we caught up with you, am I correct? Didn't you say you were going to do a little steward work over the summer?
I certainly did. I worked at Golden Gate for a time as a steward, and then they even called me off the bench to fill in one evening for the quarter horses at Los Alamitos this summer.
Ouch! Steward in a quarter horse race, that has to be a daunting task.
Well, I have experience in that, because when I was a steward in the Pacific Northwest at both Yakima Meadows and then also at LeBois Park in Idaho, I dealt with a lot of quarter horse racing. So I do have that experience. But let's just put it this way, Seth. We had a race that one evening. It was a 300-yard race, and the number 5 ducked in, leaving the starting gate, and bumped the 4, and the 4 got bumped into the 2 and the 1, and the 3 took up. And so it was a messy start in a 300-yard race, and we disqualified the 5 for starting the chain reaction, and the number 4 went on to win the race despite getting bumped at the start. But the owner of the number of the horse we took down, the number 5, gave me a call later in the evening because it was night racing, and he said, "I've been going to the races for 40 years. That's the worst call I ever saw." I said, "Well, we'll just have to disagree on that." But that people say that stewards don't take down very many horses at the start. Well, certainly we did in that case, and especially the start, has been paramount in a 300-yard race. So, but we felt that number 5 instigated the chain reaction.
Yeah, the quarter horse races, the start is what it's all about. So you mentioned Lebois, and I just have to ask you before we let you go, we're running out of time here, but I've been linking on Equidale to some stories from Idaho. They're trying to get racing back out there. What was that track like?
It was a fun little track. I'll tell you what, Wednesdays were really hopping there because they had dollar beers, and it was ladies' night where all women got in free. So what would happen is after the first, we had a twilight card, and kind of after happy hour, a lot of the women would kind of filter in because of the free admission, and then the boys with the dollar beers and all the women there would filter in. We would get quite a crowd. We'd get 4,000 or 5,000 people there on Wednesdays, and it was a lot of fun. That's the track where really Gary Stevens first would put himself on the map. So before he would go on to Portland Meadows, then to Long Acres, and then to superstardom in Southern California.
Nice. John, as always, appreciate the conversation. Wish you and everybody out at Santa Anita good luck this evening and throughout the fall meet here. And, of course, we'll talk again.
Thanks a lot, Seth. Always great to talk with you.
You as well. John White from Santa Anita. A little bit earlier, Joe Christofek from Churchill Downs, and Ellis Starr, the national racing analyst at Equibase. We hit on kind of the 3 major venues, but there's good stakes action at other places as well. Gulfstream has some stakes action. Laurel has some stakes action. Those will be in our mix this afternoon on OTB Live. I'll be back in a couple hours to kick that off. So tune back in this afternoon for a lot of the great stakes action from across the country. As always, do want to thank our friends at Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program, some of the other programming and events here on Capital OTB. Reminder, there's a Fan Appreciation Day today at the Halfway House. That's up in Essex County. Elizabethtown goes on from 1 until 5. If you are a patron there, swing on by, give us our chance to say thank you to you. First 25 folks through the door, a bet voucher, a program, giveaway item, also a contest during the afternoon, food and beverage. The Halfway House in Elizabethtown. Fan Appreciation Day today at 1 o'clock. Also, there's an online contest this afternoon. More information on the website on that, the $100 Win-A-Bet. 3% bonus days at Churchill Downs. Multiples and exotics. More information on the bonus at CapitalOTB.com as well. And do want to remind you finally, Sundays here at the Clubhouse Racebook, football Sundays. Wear a jersey, you get in for free, put your name on one of the squares, and maybe you win a prize. But you can watch all the games and catch all the racing action every Sunday during the NFL season right here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for Racing Across America for this afternoon. Tomorrow we'll be back at 10 a.m. Sully Crotty and I will recap some of the stakes action from today. Some great stakes action, so that'll be fun at 10 tomorrow. But again, a couple hours, I'll be back with OTB Live. Tune in for all of that. We'll see you this afternoon. Good luck.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.